Hello and welcome to another Office Hours capsule. That's right, capsule. This is a small section of my Office Hours live stream that I do on Twitch and YouTube at Thursdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, U.S. time. So come on down and join us for that this live stream. And so I said this is recorded live. So, excuse me, I'm still getting over a little bit of COVID, but mostly fine. Where we talk about Star Citizen. So it's an AMA stream. We can come in and hang out and talk and ask questions. And I usually cover the latest news. And this is the monthly report for Star Citizen from August of 2022. If you want to watch the whole stream, we looked at ISC, we answered a bunch of lore questions, other things like that on Twitch and YouTube. It should be archived on YouTube as well. I'll make sure to have the link up there for you if you want to watch the whole thing. But this is designed for you who can't watch the whole thing, just to kind of get this snippet from it. But I'd love to see you come down and join us when you get a chance to. With that all being said, it's important to remember that this is not a summary. This is not a short form video. This is an entire length. I'm going to read you word for word everything that's on the monthly report and give you my own interpretation of what's being said, context for things that have happened in the past, other monthly reports. I've been doing this for a little over a year now, in terms of recording it and putting it up on YouTube. So if you want to go back and watch some of those other ones, you can do so, and it'll kind of give you some context. But hopefully that'll help you, those of you who are just new trying to figure out what's going on, what CIG is doing. Nothing wrong with summaries. I just feel that if you really, really want to know what's going on with CIG and Star Citizen, you have to read everything they say. You can't just rely on somebody else's interpretation of what's being said, which is why I do this full breakdown. So grab something to drink, grab some coffee, some tea, a Coke, grab something to eat, sit back, because as you can see, it's going to be a long one. Let's get started. All right, so this is the PU monthly report from August of 2022. Welcome to August's PU's monthly report. From ladder updates to all new outposts for Pyro, a huge amount of work has been completed in this month for the next few patches releases. Read on for everything done in pursuit of the Verse's biggest ever updates. AI content. Last month, AI content focused on new medical behaviors, creating 3 new usables. Sitting angled console. This is a desk where NPCs can sit and do admin work, such as checking on patients' medical records. Examine. These are spots on either side of the medical bed to allow doctors to approach patient and diagnose their condition. This will include the use of both datapad and hand scanners. Medical fridge. This is where medicine is stored. For now, NPCs will visually inspect the stock level and enter the information on the datapad. Eventually, they will restock it when the quantities are low. The team also continued to work through numerous bugs on the Chowline usables, which was challenging due to their complex nature, and resumed work on the food vendor from last year. Alongside this, AI content continued to improve general locomotion, realism by taking the overlay animations worked on last month and categorizing them by frequency. So what they did last month was they took basically animations that were sort of connectors so they could effectively smooth out animations. Because like animation usually is like stop motion animation would be like you kind of physically move, take a picture and physically move it. And so you have like a really low FPS, and the faster you put those together, it looks more fluid. And that's all that kind of it is. What they're doing here with animations is they're adding more animations per movement so you can make things look more smooth and more precise when they move. They've been working on that for the last couple of months. For example, coughs and sneezes will play 10% of the time. Head stretches 40%, and more extensive boulder actions like checking the Moby glass will take place 30% of the time. They're currently designing a priority system to trigger these animations. So we're getting new medical behaviors, which is important because they also mentioned restocking medical fridges. There's been multiple mentions of restocking med beds, and you can even see it in game that there's the ability to access the inventory of med beds. So it's pretty obvious that soon in the game we're going to have medical beds be required to be restocked with medicine. So you can't just respawn for free at a Carrick or just do medicine for free. You're going to have to find resources to pay for it or use those resources, which follows along with a lot of the other stuff they've been working on. They're also doing chow line usables and resumed work. So more work on the the cafeteria. I swear to God, they've been working on that cafeteria animations for freaking 6 years. All right, AI features. Last month, the AI features team continued implementing the traits system, which allows them to specialize AI characters using behavior logic by either limiting or favoring certain behaviors. For example, an AI with the cautious trait will prefer moving from cover to cover when approaching a target, whereas the aggressive trait will directly move towards the target, ignoring available cover. Other traits include gunners, who prefer using turrets, medics, who aid allies by healing them, and addicts, who use stim drugs whenever available. The core system has been implemented and several traits are now in place. Further traits will be implemented once the corresponding behaviors are developed. That's pretty cool. So for those of you who don't know, this is the basis of the AI behavior system for the game. Every AI is going to have a randomly generated set of behavior kind of tags that they have to go by. Something it's not the exact same, but something that's similar is like RimWorld and lots of other colony sims often have random tags which will modify up a character's or a I forget what they call them in RimWorld, but the individual sprites, their individual characteristics, how they act, how they function, changes based off those tags. And so AI's CIG has been using this system, they've been developing the system for a while, and looks like they're finally adding it with an FPS system, which ties to them using that system for Squadron, which is where it was originally developed for. The basis of the investigation behavior implemented, with the basis of the investigation behavior implemented, the team moved on to implementing group investigation, which involves sharing potential hiding locations between AI characters, searching for the same target. This behavior is built from the token system that allows multiple AIs to collaborate by pooling resources and was developed with future use in mind. The generic shared data, in this case hiding location, can be specialized for specific use cases as the NPCs move around the room. They determine and share which hiding locations have been seen so that the other NPCs won't visit them. From a simple implementation comes the quite complicated results, with NPCs now moving to cover the room as you would expect them to do in real life. Very cool. A new system related to both features was implemented last month, the firing token. When several AIs are targeting the same character and want to fire, they request one of limited number of shared tokens. If it's successful, they'll be able to fire. However, if there's no tokens available, they'll not be able to fire and may consider alternative behaviors such as moving to cover. This allows the team to further control the pressure placed on the player, while also generating covering fire behaviors as the characters will fire whilst moving. So it seems like what they're doing is giving traits to each character and then also giving them tokens. And so each character will randomly have a number of tokens, and those tokens will be spent for enacting a behavior. And they're randomizing it so that if an AI tries to spend a token and they don't have that token, they have to default to a different behavior. So they're using a kind of a stopgap system for that. Interesting. Traits are also implemented to suppress requiring the firing token in different ways. The first is to ignore the firing token completely, which means that a character will always be able to fire without reducing the number of available tokens, which can be used for boss characters. The second is to allow a specific AI character to always get a firing token, giving them the firing priority without increasing the number of firing elements. Development of the AI perception system continued throughout August, ensuring that the escalation of threats in the perception meter can be controlled by tweaking the setup on DataForge. A new sixth sense perception range was also developed to control gameplay when the player is sneaking up behind enemy characters. The reception meter now allows the devs to generate gameplay for stealth kills, rather than stealth killing behavior being an easy option, as the player must minimize the amount of time they're even in close range before they're noticed. It sounds like Montreal's been working on this. I know it's not just them, but it's very similar to Assassin's Creed. On the animation side, AI features polished female human combat animations and created blockout animations for the improved sharp turn functionality. They also continued polishing Vandal search and investigation animations, including specific search locomotion animations. The AI feature team have been hard at work developing lots of different features. This is partially due to the strong foundation of our AI code that were developed by spending a long time thinking about the future functionality. As a team, we've also grown and have been improving the communication between the team and the designers through shared language, documentation, and regular meetings. Through this, we've been able to take their vision and make it a reality. AI feature team. That's really interesting. So they're really hard at work on this. For those of you who don't know, one of the big things they're trying to do is effectively nail a situation where you could either sneak in to complete a mission or to just run and gun, or a combination of the two to mix things up. So if you wanted to sneak into, say, a bunker mission, it would be entirely possible for you to do so as long as you were careful and slow. And if you are attacking AI with, say, melee combat or with like a pistol, but you have this like suppressor or something on it, that sound won't reach as far. So there'll be rooms where the AI don't know you're activated, and then some rooms there will, because they see the doors open, that kind of stuff. There's perception that's kind of been tweaked around, and how they react will be different depending on their behavior and based off their traits, which is pretty interesting. All right. AI tech. During August, AI tech continued to extend and implement new functionalities for NPCs traversing navigation areas. One improvement allows the designers to specify the opening width of a door navigation link and use that information during the pathfinding step. Now NPCs will use the entire width of a door, not only the center. Oh, interesting. They also began extending ladder functionalities by creating new navigation link adapters and movement blocks so that AI characters can use them in similar ways to players. We could finally be chased by AIs on ladders. AI tech also progressed with the NPC movement refactor. Specifically, they worked on a better separation of how logic is processed when animated characters and actor states are updated. This allows them to correctly handle actor LOD system, which can have both parts of a character updating in different rates. The overall movement refactor also went through a review process and intensive QA testing in preparation for its release. Further iterations were made on NPC's seamless transitions prototype. This involved ironing out the small position and pose pops when handling animation control between different systems, and adding support for selecting the best usable enter animation based on which has the best enter pose requiring the least warping. The subsumption editor tool was opened up for more designers so it could go through more intensive and in-depth functionality and performance testing. Bugs and feedback from users were addressed, and performance improvements began when loading bigger mission graphs. As a new feature for the ship combat behaviors, ship pilot perception was extended to include vision alongside radar signals. This will allow AI ships to react to hostile characters on foot and engage them in combat. Oh, very cool. Finally, AI tech continued developing and improving reinforcement and disembarking behaviors. Anything is an improvement from the current state, because they don't do jack all. They just stay in the freaking cutlass when they come down. Part of this involved allowing missions to designate points where squad or group could go investigate in case hostiles weren't visible. Okay. All right. Animation. The facial animation team worked on a large set of life and mission animations for various PU characters. On the body side, they followed the development of a new creature with the art and design teams and discussed the animation needs for when it's available. All right. So that's the first we've actually heard of a new creature and animation for that creature being done. Up till now, we've only seen concept art and like modeling. We've not actually seen, I think we saw a little bit of movement with the blind Oni crab. This is the first mention of animations for creatures. Art characters. The character art and tech art teams continue developing collections of frontier and high fashion outfits. They also prepared armor variants for the upcoming Security Post Korea mission, subscriber program, and IAE 2952. On the concept side, they're currently exploring gameplay armors and creatures. Second mention of creatures. And more armor, especially SPK armor. Okay. Art ships. In the UK, ship art continued to go to work on the Argo SRV, which is progressing through the gray box with only habitation remaining. Bad. The final art pass of an unannounced ship continued, with the bulk of LOD work nearing completion. An unannounced ground vehicle, there we go, passed its final review gate, with some small alterations to the dashboard being made to improve the visibility of the speedometer alongside small polish tasks. The resource management pass on the Aegis Hammerhead continued, with a new gravity generator room being added. The team also began implementing a new component bays. Very cool. We're getting a gravity generator room for the Hammerhead. Work on the Misk Hole C continued too, with progress being made on the outstanding issues on the ship. The US team continued moving on the Drake Corsair through final art. Last month, they completed the left and right nacelles, upper and lower port wings, spine, cockpit, co-pilot, cockpit exteriors, spine mount turret, chin cheek mounted turret, landing gear, and landing gear housing. They're currently polishing the exterior with a cargo hold and loading ramp now complete. They also supported the Drake Vulture as it approaches release. This is a really cool picture, by the way. I love that. I'm gonna get stuff done, even if I have to do so in my hospital gown. Community. The community team began August supporting the Alpha 317.2 live release with detailed guide to the Siege of Orison, dynamic event, and accompanying screenshot contest. On August 15th, they launched Phase 1 of Ship Showdown, a month-long community challenge to find the most popular flyable or drivable vehicle in the verse. Players championed their favorites by creating original artwork, videos, songs, models, and more before sharing them on Spectrum and social media. The 16 most liked and upvoted vehicles then made it to the knockout stages of Phase 2, which is currently in progress. The team also continued its Bar Citizen World Tour and stopped by Cologne for Gamescom. At 2 well-attended Bar Citizen events, we met many old and new friends and distributed more Banu Cube codes among the attendees. Thanks for attending, Citizens Community Team. Engine. In August, the physics team continued code optimization. For instance, the binding... Okay, let me do this again. I keep forgetting. Hello. My name is Paul. I'm a history teacher. I teach social studies, economics, history, psychology in high school. Secondary education, for those of you outside the US. I'm not a gameplay programmer. I am not a engine seer. I don't know the canticles of the machine code. I don't know the will of the Omnissiah. I am not a Starfleet engineer. I do not know how to reroute the plasma inductors to the warp nacelles to power the tractor beams. I am simply a dude on the internet who's reading things to you. So when it comes to the engine, I have no idea what they're saying. Usually I understand some words, but I don't understand most of what they're saying. So if you are watching this after the fact, and you are someone who's fluent in whatever language this is, feel free to translate it and leave us in the comments, because it would help a lot of other people who don't speak this language to understand what they're talking about. That being said, let's go. In August, the physics team continued to code optimization. For instance, the binding of sim topology skinning data across skin instances is now shared, which reduces loading time and memory consumption significantly. That's a lot of skin there. Also, reposition queue processing was sped up significantly. Each time a dynamic physical entity moves, a search of the physical environment needed to be performed to find and inform surrounding entities that something is moved. A change was made to separate out moving and subsequent awakening into distinct phases so work can be efficiently processed in parallel. That sounds like the streaming in and streaming out of stuff. So, another though. Brushes no longer awaken their environment when they spawn in, are repositioned, or are deleted. This has reduced stalls significantly as there are no longer storms of brushes being spawned or destroyed. In rigid time step code, dead or disabled colliders of active rigids are filtered out before being added to the list of intercolliding groups of entities. Mass tracking was restricted to grids that are on vehicles, spaceships, wheel vehicles. Moreover, support was added to allow primitive world intersection to detect overlaps/intersection with an entity's local space, OBB. Lastly, the calculation of planar skinning info was optimized by utilizing AABB tree to reduce the search space when finding the best tetrahedron for skinned vertex. Yes. On the renderer, okay, the transition for Gen 12 continued with numerous render node types ported over to the new APIs. The RTT, render to texture, Gen 12 pipeline was enabled by default, and MIP map generation, gas cloud processing, and forward and tiled forward rendering were transitioned. Support for transition graphics render passes was added, which various render subsystems already take advantage of to simplify code. Also, the compilation of fallback pipeline state object caches was optimized by allowing for more parallel execution. Lastly, the sorting code for draw packets was unified. A lot of stuff that looks like it's RTT stuff, render to texture stuff, and a lot of new things were on by default, which is good. That's a good sign. It means that they're plugging along. The Gen 12 work of atmospheric rendering was completed, and the port of volumetric clouds rendering is currently being wrapped up. Hey! Work will then commence further implementation rendering of volumetric clouds. So they're finished up some stages of volumetric clouds. They're improving volumetric clouds. That's nice. On the core engine, the team implemented a more cooperative threading approach instead of an updated thread that utilizes the parallelism of calling code to update different zones at the same time. Also, the entity lifetime changes introduced last month received further improvements. All entity components were switched over to use the new custom weak pointer implementation that was submitted in July. Finally, several legacy systems for profiling were removed from the engine, and support was given to Alpha 3.18 and the PU. Again, if you know what that is, let me know. Features Arena Commander. So, for those of you who don't know about the features team, Arena Commander team, this is the team that was formed fairly recently, I think back in March. This team was formed out of at least one former Firesprite employee, one of the companies that was working on Theaters of War, plus other members of this Star Citizen team. They're dedicated specifically to Arena Commander, Star Marine, and Theaters of War. That's their job, is to update them. So they were formed pretty recently, and we know as of a couple of weeks ago, they're actively adding things like the new racetracks for Arena Commander and updating a bunch of other stuff, like updating how racing even functions in Star Citizen in the Arena Commander mode. So the Arena Commander feature team progressed with improving both Arena Commander and Star Marine's front-end player experience. This will make finding matches and connecting to other players more rewarding experience. Additionally, map improvements are in the works following community feedback. For example, in Dying Star, the smoke cloud has had its opacity reduced, and ash particles are made smaller and less obtrusive, greatly reducing the overall glare in the level and increasing visibility. They're currently investigating using the in-progress radar and scanning improvements to show gas cloud and asteroid locations that players can use to hide in. UI enhancements were also made to radar scanning to help players look for targets and perform scans. Finally, the bugs for the team's upcoming release were addressed. Okay. Features, characters, and weapons. Last month, the team revisited ladder traversal, adding support for entering and exiting a ladder at midpoints so that the single ladder can service multiple floors. While extending the feature set, they took the opportunity to improve the mechanic, making it possible to look around while traversing the ladder with a most likely full 360 view range while idling. With a large degree of freedom in view, the team felt it made sense to allow the player to jump from the ladder in the direction they're looking, further increasing options when traversing game environments. All the animations and poses are currently being updated too, alongside early exploration into allowing item usage such as weapons while on ladders. That's why they call it a ladder update. The team is also performing a much-needed cleanup of the actor rotation handling. An actor essentially has 4 different rotations: the actual entity rotation, the systematic orientation of the actor; the base rotation, desired orientation; aim rotation, where the weapon or held item should be pointing; and the look rotation, the camera eye orientation. Each type has different rules and limits, but is code dependent. The team has been working to simplify the update flow, ensuring limits are only applied once and always in the correct order. Work also went into removing special cases whenever possible, as well as improving how inputs translate to these different rotations. The latter also meant improving how the rotation input flows from client to server, especially for head tracking services. Okay, so just cleaning up that process to make it a little bit smoother. But also lots of stuff with ladders. Features, gameplay. Gameplay features continued with resource network rework, with relay items for the Hammerhead and the Hull A being updated to align with the vehicle contact team's work mentioned above. They then started looking into the setup of the Crusader Ares and other similar sized ships. A solution was also found for smaller items that connected to a ship's power, like coffee machines and small lamps. This will also be utilized in the upcoming colonial outposts. Work on life support was finalized, is now awaiting downstream support. In the meantime, work began on the gravity generator. Life support's finished. Life support is done. Now, that doesn't mean life support's in game. It means that the system of life support is finished and is waiting for the downstream teams to use that mechanic and implement it on ships and stations and such. So that's pretty cool. Finally, salvage is now in the QA test request phase, which involves fixing bugs and other issues. So salvage is done too, which is another big one. Features mission. The mission features team worked on a variety of new missions and features. They also took part in the launch of Siege of Orison and planned improvements based on the feedback. As roadmap states, we are working on packing more content into Korea and the prison, and are creating mission modules that can be placed on Orison's platforms that can occupy anything from a single buildings all the way up to the entire platforms. Mission features team. They also brought various teams together to discuss solving combat logging and are currently making a workable pitch. For those of you who have been complaining about combat logging, they're starting to work on it, which is awesome. Mission features are currently investigating how to lessen the impact of crime stats obtained through bugs, though the majority of bugs aren't within the team's remit. In pursuit of this, they worked on the change that will make CS1 and CS2 not cause security or allow players to attack, meaning players will be able to request landing and reach kiosks to pay off crimes, providing it doesn't cause any negative knock-ons. This is planned for release soon. This is really big, actually. So they're trying to improve combat logging, which is one of the big pet peeves of a lot of players in game right now. And they're directly addressing the thing that I've talked about on the captain's table. I've talked about with many other people on the info runners, and many people have talked about before, which is the CS system as it stands sucks. it's a terrible system and that needs to be improved. And I know that they can't change the system overnight. It just takes time. But this is a huge step to improving that experience, because otherwise you're just going to force a bunch of players to deal with gankers at Korea with 318. Because, that's the only place you'll be able to hack away your crime stat in 318. So this is a good step. At least it's obvious that CIG is listening and trying to implement solutions, which I appreciate. Mission features also prototyped a time trial race. The first iteration will likely not have leaderboards, but will allow for accurate time measurement with leaderboards, new tracks, and vehicle types following in subsequent release. Alongside this, they investigated allowing players to rent and spawn the necessary vehicles at the race location for ease of entry. On top of this, the game design documents and foundation work for Bounty Hunting V2 is nearing complete, which includes bounty drop-offs, the use of virtual NPCs, a new investigation mission type entering the prototype, and the use of virtual NPCs. A new investigation mission type entered the prototype staging, and this is one of the most complex the team has ever tracked. So we're also seeing that Bounty Hunting V2 is just now getting its design docs done. So we'll probably see more about that around CitizenCon, but it also means that it ain't coming out soon, y'all. We're not going to see bounty hunting for a while. So just keep that in mind. Features vehicles. August had the team refocus the new multifunction displays, MFDs, and integrated ship UI systems. The team solved technical problems related to the MFDs and nailed down detailed designs for various elements. Progress is moving forward finally on this feature that has been in the cards for a long time. This is big news. This is actually a really good monthly report so far. A lot of stuff that's been the pet peeves of players or small issues that needed to be addressed, and also things that needed to get changed over, like the MFDs needed to get the new system, which I'm glad for. The team also is currently working closely with the EUPU team on Resource Network System. That's the system that's allowed for multi-crew gameplay. This involves integrating various vehicle features with resource networking and having them exchange things like power and coolant. They also updated and improved the design of how various items interact with resources. Significant research also went into improving combat AI for fighters, with the team researching things they can do and make plans for how to implement them. It's pretty cool. And for those who are wondering, we actually did get a little bit of update with, I kind of glossed over that, but the Arena Commander team talked about how they're implementing the new HUD for like radar and stuff like that into Arena Commander to try to improve playability. So they're just going to take parts of the new HUD and put it only in the Arena Commander ships, which is interesting. Or at least it'll work with the objects in the Arena Commander maps. Graphics, VFX programming, and planet tech. This is a thick one. The damage map tech for Salvage is approaching the end of the feature development and is running into the bug fixing phase. With all the required tech coming together, the team began testing the persistence of damage maps for the first time, highlighting additional improvements to be made. Damage map persistence will soon be ready for enabling, allowing wider testing by QA. So the damage map is done for Salvage. With, obviously they need to branch it out, but it's done the feature development. With QA testing hole scraping, improvements were made to the gameplay values and how they can be debugged. On the visual side, graphics are currently preparing to allow vehicle art to iterate on and fine-tune the damage map visuals. Progress was made on porting particles to Gen 12, including mesh and submesh particle rendering and bringing them to feature parity with legacy particles. Several lighting and shadow update passes on gas clouds were also ported to Gen 12. Optimizations were made to the clip volume submission and scattering injections and in-scattering injection stages for volumetric fog. Now the artists are able to tag mesh sub-objects as interiors or exteriors to better handle lighting around the turrets and doors. Progress began on the edge highlight rendering mode, or objects that would normally be occluded cold by walls to support FPS scanning of other players and NPCs. Very cool. A tool progressed that will allow the team to perform multiple jittered captures of a scene and interleave them together to output an ultra-high resolution image. The Rastar tool also received a useful tech refresh to make it usable with built-in editor tools, while additional efforts were made to improve stability, usability, and responsiveness. So that sounds like they're doing composite images and they improved Rastar, which is the thing that they need to allow for players to build outposts. But it's also the tool they use for building outposts for themselves too. With multiple improvements recently made to River Tech, the team received a QATR report that allowed them to find new issues. These were addressed and will be included in the latest iteration of Alpha 3.18. Finally, for graphics, the team began the initial tasks targeting CPU offloading of Planet Tech code. The goal is to provide equivalent functionalities of ground-level scattered objects with compute shaders instead of relying on slower CPU path. The benefits are significant, with the team able to spend the saved computational budget on other purposes, such as gameplay and tech. So they're trying to optimize the Planet Tech so that they're not using as much resources for the Planet Tech and make it a little bit easier for them to do other things. Lighting. In August, Lighting spent time on the new cave systems, which allowed them to differentiate them from typical artificial lighting usually seen in the Runverse. Aside from this, they further worked on Pyro, contributed some of the new locations' impressive visuals. Very brief. Ooh, shoot. All right, locations, EU. The EU Sandbox spent part of the month working on outlaw themes for the colonialism outposts, which will be darker and more dangerous places to explore. Elsewhere, they began whiteboxing various new models for outposts, including landing areas, smaller habitations, refineries, and ore extractors. Whitebox work continued on upcoming space sandbox locations that will provide more interesting opportunities for ship-based exploration and gameplay. The landing zone team progressed with Pyro's Ruin Station, focusing on art for the external industrial areas and damaged locations. Inside, cold route areas were injected with extra side routes and activities. Exterior access hatches were developed to give extra access options, while exploratory work was performed to craft ideas for the shantytown habitations. Okay. So they're working on Ruin Station finally. That's good. Time was also dedicated to the revamped underground facilities, with the team whiteboxing the remaining layouts with a focus on how the player navigates the surface structure down to the top of the physical elevator. Work was also done on the entrance lobby and elevator entrance room, with final pieces getting close to being set up and working in whitebox. Beyond whiteboxing, the devs explored the visual targets for final art, with new asset kits being created and worked up to high polish. A push was also made on interactable props featuring modular machines, interactable cupboards, and lockers, switches, and fuses. These will provide great gameplay opportunities to designers for implementing exploration and traversal puzzles. Locations team. Different initiatives were explored for adding to landing zones and feature work, tasks for this year's IAE were started, and the buggy trace track received extensive playtesting and bug fixing. A new fuel barge for Orison is now art complete, barring LODs, and will be used in the future for a variety of mission types. Pre-production began for the new law and bounty offices, which will be found around the system and will be where bounties can be taken and new bounty missions can be found. The team also whiteboxed improvements to Korea in support of the mission features team's gameplay initiatives. Spawn closets were added to all landing zones, and improved signage was prototyped for Area 18 to help players too. That's. So this is the first mention of bounties having to be found at bounty offices. They're removing bounties from the mobiGlas. I'm pausing for dramatic effect because that means that the most profitable missions right now in game, which is bounties, are going to have a time sink. Because you're going to have to go to an office, pick up the mission, and then do the bounty. There we go. I've talked about that for a bit, but that's the first time they've mentioned that. Obviously, they've been working on the design docs for it, so they've obviously kind of decided to finally flesh that details out. But that's what they're talking about. The team also whiteboxed improvements to Korea in support of the mission feature team's gameplay initiatives. Spawn closets were added to all landing zones and improved signage prototype for Area 18 to help new players too. So we're getting spawn closets for landing zones, which means we will no longer have AI lining up like they're meeting Lord Vader who just landed, which is awesome. So this is pretty big. Like, big in the sense that the stuff they're talking about isn't like groundbreaking, but it's all stuff that was either issues that players currently have or immediate solutions to problems which are on the horizon, or immediate additions to improve the gameplay we have now, which is nice. Locations, Montreal. Montreal locations team dedicated time to debugging and polishing several content elements, including the Daymar Relic settlement, which is nearing completion. The crash site, released in January, was upgraded with AI, loot, and other features, while the Derelict Reclaimer settlement was updated too. Art team continued creating a wider library of habitations that will be used in upcoming Derelict settlements. This will allow the team to create more diverse settlements with different gameplay opportunities. The ongoing rework of Lorville's cityscape is progressing well and is now in the gray box phase. The team are currently adding high-frequency details and landing pads and connecting the various neighborhoods together. They also kicked off building interiors, with the first steps being a prototype of the de-risking of the number of technical items. Gosh, that's neighborhoods connected together, landing pads, building interiors. Sounds like the wish list that that the community was asking for. Being able to drive between various neighborhoods, drive around in cities, have multiple locations to go to. We need more information, but as always with these sorts of read-throughs, it's important to keep that in mind. Check that off, store it in your memory banks for later, because that's going to come back in some way, shape, or form. That's the first time we've kind of we've been hearing them talk about how these things worked. So, and of course, this is also the Montreal team, which is. They put something in the poutine. I don't know what they do in Montreal, but those boys, girls, and NBs are working hard. In-game branding, Montreal. The in-game branding team completed tasks for IAE and are currently working on a single signage pass for various landing zones as part of the new player experience effort. The goal of this pass is to make it easier for new players to find their way around PU's various landing zones. That's good. All right, here comes my bread and butter, narrative. This is Lore Team. Alongside various mission design teams, Narrative worked on the new content for upcoming patches, including the expansions coming to Security Post Korea and the Kleischer Rehabilitation Facility, as highlighted in a recent Inside Star Citizen. They also discussed adjustments to existing dynamic missions. They also explored narrative needs for some environmental missions currently in development. While they don't have contracts and objectives like traditional missions, Narrative still work closely with design to ensure that the mission is presented with a strong sense of flow and fits within the universe. For the all-new mission type mentioned in last month's update, the team finished a full text pass and were able to make revisions after playing through an in-game prototype. The team also assisted in writing text to support several in-development game features, like hacking and salvaging, as well as writing names and descriptions for dozens of props, items, weapons, vehicles, armor, and clothing. Since there are several holidays and events coming up in the final stretch of 2022, the team outlined the text and narrative support needed to begin the writing process. Narrative Design spent a time in August reviewing the AI wildline sets currently being used in-game and investigating improvements that could be made using assets that have already been recorded and captured. Okay? Hopefully some of the new things outlined will be able to make their way into the game soon to help improve the player experience when interacting with NPCs either in the landing zone or in combat. Hey, I'd like to hear that. They also published a new content for the website, including observationist lifestyle, introducing a growing movement called Citizens for Pyro, a profile about the Bremen Beltway, a new Plain Truth where Parker exposes the possibility of shady business at Hurston, this quarter's Loremaker's community questions, and a new set of Galactopedia posts. All very good. I haven't read the Observus one. The Bremen Beltway is a repost, and the Plain Truth I actually did a video on the Astro Historian. Boom, right in front of me. You'll see it right there. That's the link. Go click it if you want to go watch that. And I also did a Lore Maker's community questions. Boom, right there again for you after the fact if you want to take a look at that one. We did both of those. Player relations. Both player support and player experience teams combined grew about 30% with emphasis on delivering better, quicker services for the player base. If you're interested in joining the team, there is a game support specialist and a live QA specialist roles open now. So they're even posting advertisements for hiring in the in the monthly report. Interactables. Ooh, cubes. The Interactables team developed prototypes for deployable props, which were first shown inside Star Citizen. After completing initial prototyping and getting grips to the new workflows, they moved on to their first harvestable. We've worked diligently to bring some life to the verse in this very first of its kind, a bug harvestable. You can find these little creatures in the new caves dotted around Stanton. Nice. So you can actually capture Rantas. Wait, Rantas are in Star... What? Does this mean the first fauna we're getting are bugs? Probably the Rantas in the caves. Caves are about to get very scary. Be prepared. You start hearing, little chitters behind you when you're walking down the cave. You're crawling through there. You hear little, and you look up and you see this giant pillbug staring at you. Alongside harvestables, the team looked into consumables that players can find throughout Pyro to keep themselves alive. These may not be appetizing, some don't even look edible, but in Pyro, you can't be too picky what your next meal will be. Timon and Pumbaa, Tools, Montreal. The Montreal-based Tools team released Mighty Bridge version 0.6 to the dev team. This update adds two new functionalities. V2 of the object spawner, which allows for the team to spawn multiple layers of objects on geometries and planet surfaces, and the cable generator, which generates complex cables from simple spline. These two tools will help the art teams create locations faster. The release also includes a variety of improvements and services, including an updated debug mesh that helps selecting the parent tool and increase precision on planet surfaces. The team also is nearing completed of the first version of the procedural locations creation tool. This will allow them to create and edit simple layouts of space stations in minutes and will dramatically decrease the time it takes to make stations out of existing modules. They're also in the final push of the first version of the tool that will help create derelict settlements. The goal of this iteration is to be able to create 80% of derelict settlements procedurally. This heavy lifting will allow artists more time to polish and finish the location. Reaching this goal will mean that the derelict settlement will take weeks rather than months to create. That's the real thing that Montreal's been pushing on, is these tools to make settlements, buildings, landing zones, stations, all much more procedural with a little bit more iteration. So that's pretty cool. Tech animation. Alongside long-term planning, Tech Animation approached the release of the revamped loadout pipeline in Maya. This will dramatically speed up the loading of complex Maya assets and accurately reflect their current state in game. It's a win on every level, and we're excited to share it. Tech Team. Further to this, the team began consolidating all new heads they would like to appear in game. This involves processing a lot of old and new data along with alignment to deliver the requirements for both parts of the game. So far, 60 heads need to be scanned, created, rigged, and integrated with the DNA gene pool to achieve this vision. Very cool. Online services. So this is, I believe, the Turbulent web team. Oh, web tip platform. This is just online services. The online services team spent the month preparing for the release of Alpha 3.18 by focusing on stability, bug fixing, and deployment process for the new login flow. They also fixed bugs on the entity graph and login flow, and worked alongside a team in Austin on testing various deployment options and performances of the login flow service. Significant progress was made towards the new fleet service and shard manager. Both are needed for persistent entity streaming and are almost ready for internal demo. Development of private lobbies began too, which will add new matchmaking and gameplay options for Arena Commander. Lastly, a bug was fixed in the fixed closure rate indicator UI element. The indicator was giving the full relative speed instead of only the velocity component towards the target. Okay, very cool. Live Tools Montreal. The Live Tools team progressed with design improvement for Hex gathered from the feedback provided by its regular users. Since the new login process was implemented successfully, the team is now developing the login flow and the entity graph for the online service for the Network Operations Center, which will allow the users to access detailed information about the login log details and different inventories of players and ships. These new modules provide an advanced capacity for investigation, for monitoring, and troubleshooting a wide range of issues. Turbulent web platform. I think we're almost done here. Throughout August, Turbulent's web team continued to add to the Alexandria CMS tool, adding a new and improved RSI skin, as well as completing designs for the new Drake style. The backend architecture team upgraded code bases for PHP 7.4. They also made major advancements in resurrecting the much-needed K8s project to make it easier and more efficient to scale web browsers and QA environments. Turbulent's community web team further developed the upcoming community hub, while the experience team began several new projects, including clearer onboarding for new players. Finally. All right. UI team continued to push towards feature on the new star map, implementing three-dimensional text and shader effects for space clouds. The artists worked on a range of concepts for terminal screens in different locations around the verse, and several bugs were fixed. Currently, focus remains on adjusting the existing loadout system, ready for persistent streaming. Then lastly, VFX. Last month saw VFX concept art continue to iterate on quantum travel effects, which involved collaborating with VFX artists to prototype the effects in-game. So they're completely redoing the quantum travel effects. Elsewhere, the team added effects to several new modular locations, including some crashed and derelict spaceships. They also began working on 2 new vehicles. Finally, work continued on salvage effects, specifically the hole stripping laser used by some vehicles. So, some big news here. VFX working on new quantum travel effects, so we're getting new quantum travel stuff. Getting some more hole stripping laser stuff. We're getting the star map is going to be 3-dimensional text and shader implements effects for clouds. So we're going to do more. We're working on the new star map, and getting stuff ready for PES. A lot of stuff for Community Hub, for Red Platform. More stuff for Web Platform. Stuff for private lobbies. We're getting more private lobbies for Arena Commander. We're getting stuff for PES. Let's see. New heads in game. We've got a bunch of new tools. So this is the big one that I didn't kind of go over, but I really want to. The fact that they're working on a bunch of procedural tools is literally what Montreal was originally designed for. they were designed to build out the verse. So the goal of Montreal, the end goal of Montreal, is to have tools where they can push a button and generate probably 80 to 90% of a planetary system. Not just the planets, but everything in the planets. So when people ask, I get this all the question, how is CIG going to make 100 systems when they can't even make one system in 10 years? And the answer is tools. These procedural tools will speed up the process. By the time these tools are fully implemented and online, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw an entire system being ready to go within a month. With everything except for maybe full detailed landing zone aspects and maybe mission givers. So the idea of having 1, 2, even 3 landing systems dropping every quarter in the distant future, not like next year or this year or even the year after that, but within the next 3 years is not an unlikely possibility. But we'll have to see. That's dedicated to these tools that they're working on. Interactables, we're getting bugs that we can harvest and eat. The player relations team is hiring. Narrative is doing a brand new mission type, as well as working on some other stuff. They're trying to improve the signage for new players. Lorville, getting completely reworked from the ground up, becoming the new gold standard for landing zones, I think, because this is the first time that Montreal is heading the development of these, so that's pretty cool. Buggy tracks, ruin stations finally being worked on in terms of external, more actual content on ruin station, which is the main landing zone for Pyro. Reworking the underground bunkers, UGFs, the underground facilities, Korea. We also see some new lighting coming in. A bunch of stuff for Gen 12. We get MFDs are coming in. The resource systems being added. The full like what's it called? The life support systems have been finished. The back-end stuff for life support systems are done. Brand new missions. They're changing crime stats, so it's no longer, level 1 kill on sight kind of thing. Doing more. Gosh, it's completely working out bounty hunting too. Bounty hunting now is going to require you to go down and physically get a mission from a bounty location. So no longer able to use your mobiGlass for it, which I think is a good thing, but may be controversial. Salvage is being tested. It's been fixed. They're working on the new resource system, get that working out, which is the multi-crew system stuff. Ladders, lots of work on ladders. Arena Commander is getting new updates. RTT, the render texture Gen 12 stuff is being put in. A bunch of stuff added for the engine. Community stuff's going on. The ship team has an unannounced ship, an unannounced ground vehicle. They're working on the Hull C. They're working on the Hammerhead, and they're working on the Hammerhead got a gravity generator room now, and they're working on the Drake Corsair and the Vulture. So that's 5 ships right there. New armors and outfits. Creature animations. Refactoring NPC movements for transitions. Ship behaviors. They're improving how AI kind of sees the universe, their investigation behavior, and they're adding new stuff for medical system. This is a huge monthly report, y'all. This is adding a lot of stuff. Feels like they're finally chipping away at the block that they need to for the next couple of patches. It seems like they're all kind of getting down that. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this. I do want to know, if you're watching this after the fact, in the comments below, Let me know what you think. Of course, as always, tell me, do you enjoy this? Is this helpful for you? That helps me out a lot because I only do this because people say, hey, Paul, please do more of these readings because I don't have time to read it and I'd like to hear your interpretation and hear you read it. So that's why I do it. So let me know in the comments below if that's okay. A lot of you have been jumping over to the Astro Historian. If you don't know what the Astro Historian is, boom, go there. It's my lore channel. I talk a lot about Star Citizen, talk about some other games, but it's mostly Star Citizen. So if you're interested in the stories and lore, the actual universe of Star Citizen, because it's pretty extensive, I've got that channel up there for you can go to. And if you're new here, or if you just popped up here, I'm live streaming Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays on twitch.tv/TheAstroPub. Thursdays at 6 p.m. Eastern, or 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. I do this, The Office Hours, which is a live stream. Pull it straight from my live stream. Join us. You can join us there. And remember, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. If this is, say, your second or third time watching me, hit that subscribe button so you can always be notified when these come up. And, of course, hit the little bell icon. And, yeah, like I say every time, hope to see you someday in the black.